Hey, Nick Zungoli. Yeah, what a long, strange ride it's been here. I came to Sugar Loaf in 1979 and actually was familiar with Sugar Loaf as early as 1972 when a good friend of mine who I went to college with moved up to Warwick, and I went up one summer to visit him, and we came to Sugar Loaf to hang out. Back in 1972, um, those were different days, very, very different days here in Orange County. There was absolutely nothing happening in Warwick, nothing happening all over Orange County, but there was like this energy going on here in Sugarloaf that you couldn't miss. You could feel it. And what was the energy? Well, the art and craft movement had a renaissance in the 60s, and Sugarloaf became the flag bearer for it. Somehow, some way, several people, artisans, decided, spearheaded by Walter Cannon, Jarvis Boone, Peter Lenvid. Those are the three names that come to mind. And there were more than just a handful of other artisans that were here too, and some gift shops. It was always eclectic. That was the word I would use to describe Sugarloaf back in those days. Eclectic and interesting and different. It was complete. This was also at the time where the big mega malls were starting to establish themselves all over the country. And this was like the polar opposite experience. Coming to Sugarloaf was the shopping experience where you got to meet the maker, which was at the time quite popular. Crafts were new and exciting, and they were not easy to find, but you could find it here in Sugarloaf, and that translated into like amazing amount of traffic here. So over the years, the community held different events. They had a spring festival, craft festival, and back then it really was a craft fair because there were so few venues for the artisans that were out there. Sugarloaf was the natural place to come. So when I came in 1979, I had actually was still working as a structural engineer. And a lot of people don't know that about me, but right out of college, I went to work for an engineering corporation. And at that same point in time, I became very, very involved and interested as an OCD kind of guy. I just grabbed hold of things, and my new passion was photography. I picked up my first camera when I was in college, my senior year, took a semester off, bought a camera in Germany, and then it was just a hobby, like everybody else's hobby, but it grew into something more than that, bigger than that, and I started making prints. I built a darkroom in my home, and one of my coworkers says, "Hey, you know about these art and craft fairs? You should do those. You should try those out." Um, Through my friend, and because I knew about Sugarloaf, they were having a festival in the spring. I came to the community. I had a little booth and brought all my prints and set up on the main street in front of where Mary Endico's business is right now. Things went really, really well at the craft fair for me. Well, actually, it was an art show. And in fact, pretty much sold everything that I had in my booth. And I thought, oh my God, what a beautiful little community. Now I was thinking in terms of leaving my career as an engineer and maybe taking a stab at doing this as a full-time thing. Kind of a radical thought. My father thought I was nuts. You don't leave a good job for an engineering company with a pension and the whole McGilly, but I was bored to death with that work. And this was my passion, and I wanted to follow my passion. And when I came to Sugarloaf, that just, it amplified that feeling in me because there were these other people living their dreams, right? They made a decision, a big decision, like to leave it all behind and just follow their dream. And so about a month or so after I did the show, I get a phone call, and it's from Mary Endico. And she says, did you think about ever opening up a gallery? And I was like, yeah, actually, I've been giving that a lot of thought lately. And she said, well, listen, we have this space down in Scotts Meadow where I have a gallery. And we just bought the house on the main street, and that space is going to become available. You think you might be interested? So I said, I think I'm really interested. So I came up, I looked at the space. The space was in one of the chicken barns down in Scotts Meadow. They had done the initial work of scraping all the chicken stuff out of there and cleaning it all out. And the walls were all insulated, and they had a wood stove sitting in the middle of the place. But I said, I'm in. They lived upstairs. There was literally no plumbing in the building. I don't know how they did that. I started $100 for rent every month. And it was not only a place to do business downstairs, and the space was pretty big. I moved in, I sheetrocked the place, I put plumbing in, I made a dark room upstairs, and by October, by the Fall Festival, I opened for business in 1979. Making a living as an artist, it's really an unconventional kind of a way of life, and you don't get any steady income coming in. So when I went to all the banks to get a mortgage, even though at this point I was doing fairly well for myself, I actually I bought this building that we're in right now, which was built in the 1920s by Ezra Decker, who lived next door here. And it was essentially, it was just a utility building where they parked farm implements, and then two guys who worked the farm lived upstairs. So, and then there was an outhouse in the back. But so I bought the building. It had been improved a little bit by some other craftspeople, Bob and Roseanne Lowy, and they were both incredible artists. And they did pottery. They went through different phases, and they went through stained glass, and there's all sorts of beautiful stained glass in this building, thanks to them. And so I inherited all that when I bought the building from them for $100,000 in 1985. And so back to the whole bank thing and getting a mortgage, I had to actually pony up $60,000 in cash because the bank would only give me $40,000 based on what I showed for my income. And anyway, it was very, very difficult. But I managed to do that because those 5 years in Sugarloaf first 5 years in Sugarloaf where I was only paying $100 a month rent were very good to me. So I made a deal with the Loweys. I knew they had a piece of property up on Sugarloaf Mountain, on the Sugarloaf Mountain Road there, and I knew they wanted to buy. So I said, why don't we do this? I'll pay you for the house. You'll have the money. I'll give you a full year to build your house on Sugarloaf Mountain. And while you're building that house, I'll be building the gallery in the front here. So over the next year, after I had purchased the building, I would work making prints down in Scotts Meadow where my business was. And then usually around 3 o'clock, I would get my hammer and my tools, and I'd walk up the hill, and I'd work on building my studio here, which I have to say I designed it. And so I'd come up and bang nails and put up 2x4s and, did the sheetrock. And finally, a year afterwards, the Loweys moved out and I moved in and opened up the Exposures Gallery here. And that's where it's been ever since. So I'm so grateful for being in this community. It's been so good to me over the years. Yeah, the world has changed. Sugarloaf is not the same, but no place that you've ever seen has stayed the same. I mean, it's been 50 years. My God, that's a long time, a half a century. The world has changed enormously, how people do business, what people are interested in. But Sugarloaf still remains true to its heart. I don't know of any community in the Hudson Valley that has really as many artists, still working artists here in Sugarloaf. The percentage, we might not have as many as we did back in 1972, but we have less businesses, but the percentage is about the same of working artists here in Sugarloaf. And when you consider that we're not a village, we're not a town, we're certainly not a city, we're just a hamlet. There's no hamlet that I know of that comes close to offering what this hamlet has. We have a beautiful performing arts center now. We have several restaurants that are beautiful restaurants. We have a winery down the road. We have a brewery across the street. We have so much here. And for me personally, as an artist, this is where my heart really, really lies. It lies here in the Hudson Valley with the changing seasons. And I can walk out my door any morning, get in the car. Well, no, I don't even have to get in the car. I could just walk across the street, and there's beauty to be found here to capture and share with everyone, which is what I do. And this is how I've made a living, and this is what continues to fuel me. And 45 years later, it's as important to me now as it was new then. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.